In America, your hands can get you into more trouble than your words. We're not just talking about the middle finger, everybody knows that one. We're talking about hand signs that mean peace in one city, gang affiliation in another, and in some cases, symbols the FBI lists as extremist propaganda. Here's the thing, some of these gestures are so disputed you can lose your job, get suspended from school, or even end up in a federal investigation. And this will blow your mind. One of them is the exact same OK sign you use at a barbecue. So today we're breaking down America's most controversial hand gestures, how they're policed, and why they spark so much debate. The OK sign. At first glance, the OK sign looks innocent, a simple circle made by touching the thumb and forefinger with the other three fingers extended. For decades, that's exactly what it was. The universal shorthand for everything's fine. Divers use it underwater instead of a thumbs up. NBA players throw it after hitting three-pointers, and playground kids once used it for the circle game. But in 2017, an online campaign known as Operation OKKKK changed everything. It started as a hoax on 4chan with the goal of convincing the media that the OK sign secretly meant white power. The logic? The three extended fingers formed a W, and the circle plus wrist made a P. What began as trolling soon crossed into reality. White supremacists started adopting it in earnest, using the symbol at rallies. By 2019, the Anti-Defamation League added the sign to its hate symbols database. They noted, though, that context matters. In most situations, it's still harmless. Yet if someone flashes it at a far-right rally, it's read as extremist coding. This ambiguity has sparked serious disputes. In 2018, a Coast Guard officer was pulled from duty after being caught making the gesture on live TV. Critics said it was a deliberate hate signal. Defenders claimed it was just the circle game. On social media, debates erupted. Was the man expressing racism, or was he misread? That uncertainty makes the OK sign one of America's most disputed gestures. Depending on context, it could mean approval, a basketball celebration, or extremist allegiance, a dangerous kind of cultural confusion that few other symbols carry. The peace sign. Two fingers raised in a V. Today, most people see it as a cheerful symbol of peace or a casual pose for selfies, but the peace sign's history is long, political, and more complicated than its lighthearted Instagram image suggests. Winston Churchill first popularized it in the 1940s, calling it V for victory. During the Second World War, it symbolized triumph over fascism. Richard Nixon later adopted it in the 1970s, raising both arms in double V signs as he boarded the helicopter that carried him away from the White House. By the 1960s, though, the meaning shifted. Anti-Vietnam War protesters and hippie movements turned it into a symbol of resistance and non-violence. It was rebranded as the peace sign, forever tied to counterculture, Woodstock, and the American left. But here's where the dispute comes in. While it's harmless in the US when the palm faces outward, turning it inward is a major insult in Britain, Australia, and New Zealand, equivalent to flipping the bird. That has led to misunderstandings abroad when Americans pose the wrong way. Domestically, the gesture still sparks controversy when used at protests. Critics sometimes dismiss it as anti-American when tied to anti-war or pro-Palestinian marches. Supporters insist it's the essence of free speech. The same sign that feels lighthearted at Disneyland can suddenly feel loaded at a rally in Washington. That contradiction, selfie pose versus political banner, is why the peace sign remains disputed. It is simultaneously a symbol of joy, rebellion, and, in the wrong context, offense. Few gestures have traveled so far across history yet remained so relevant in American life. The raised fist. Few hand gestures carry as much symbolic weight as the raised fist. One hand, clenched tight, thrust into the air. To some, it's the ultimate sign of solidarity and empowerment. To others, it's a provocative emblem of radicalism. The raised fist first gained traction in American labor movements in the early 20th century, representing unity against exploitation. But it truly entered the spotlight during the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City. Sprinters Tommy Smith and John Carlos, standing on the medal podium, raised their fists in a Black Power salute. The backlash was immediate. Both athletes were expelled from the games, condemned by officials, and targeted in the press. Yet their action also became one of the most iconic protest images of the century. In the decades since, the raised fist has reappeared again and again. It became a core symbol of the Black Panther Party, resurfaced in union rallies, and exploded back into global consciousness during the Black Lives Matter protests of 2020. Protesters raised fists against riot shields, murals across America depicted it as a beacon of strength, and social media adopted it as a universal protest emoji. But controversy follows. Police unions and conservative commentators frame it as anti-law enforcement. Some schools banned images of it in yearbooks, citing political sensitivity. Others defend it as free expression, no different than the American flag. The raised fist is a paradox. It represents unity to one side, division to another. That tension, protest symbol, or provocation keeps it one of the most debated hand gestures in America. Its power lies not just in the hand itself, but in how differently people choose to read it. Gang signs. When it comes to disputed hand gestures, few carry as much danger or controversy as gang signs. These are not universal like the peace sign or the OK symbol. Instead, they're hyper-specific to neighborhoods, groups, and rivalries. The Bloods, for instance, are known for spelling their name with elaborate hand shapes. The Crips use distinctive C forms. Latino gangs like MS-13 flash signs to mark territory, issue threats, or simply show allegiance. For those inside these worlds, the meaning is crystal clear. A sign can declare loyalty, insult a rival, or even mark the start of violence. But for outsiders, it's often misunderstood. Teenagers mimicking gang culture on TikTok may not realize they're copying something that could have deadly real-world consequences. The legal system complicates matters even more. Prosecutors frequently use photos of defendants flashing hand signs as evidence in court. Critics argue this criminalizes expression and can unfairly prejudice juries. After all, throwing up a W with your fingers doesn't always mean gang membership. It could mean a local sports team or simply a joke among friends. The FBI and local police departments maintain guides to gang signs, warning officers that hand gestures can reveal affiliations. Yet civil liberties groups push back, saying those same guides often lump innocent cultural expressions into the category of crime. This tension makes gang signs uniquely disputed. They are both real, deadly markers of organized crime, and at the same time, a flashpoint for debates about over-policing and free expression. A teenager flashing a B in a selfie could be imitating rap culture or signaling a dangerous allegiance. The problem is, it's often impossible to know which without context. 3%er, malicious salute. Among America's most controversial symbols is the 3%er salute, a hand gesture tied to anti-government militia movements. The gesture itself varies. Sometimes it's 3 raised fingers, other times it's an OK sign repurposed to represent the number 3. Either way, its roots are political, not playful. The name comes from a disputed Revolutionary War myth that only 3% of colonists actively took up arms against the British. Modern militia groups adopted the name, presenting themselves as patriotic defenders of liberty against government tyranny. The hand sign became shorthand for that identity, but the associations grew darker in recent years. After the 2010s, 3%er groups became linked to armed standoffs, anti-immigration protests, and most infamously, the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Photos of rioters displaying the 3-finger salute turned it into a lightning rod. Supporters insisted it was about honoring America's revolutionary spirit. Critics saw it as the banner of extremism and domestic terrorism. The FBI has since labeled the 3%ers as an extremist movement, and the Department of Justice has prosecuted individuals tied to violent plots under the group's name. Employers, police forces, and even the military now investigate personnel photographed using the salute. This creates a chilling ambiguity. A gesture that might be meant as patriotic pride can just as easily be read as extremism. Much like the OK sign, its meaning depends on context, but the consequences can be severe. In an era of heightened polarization, flashing 3 fingers isn't neutral. It's a statement, one that sparks fierce debate about where patriotism ends and extremism begins. Devil horns. The devil horns gesture, extending the index and pinky while holding the middle and ring fingers down with the thumb, is a staple of rock concerts. Fans throw it up at metal shows to signal allegiance, excitement, and rebellion. But this seemingly fun gesture has sparked decades of controversy, especially in America. Heavy metal legend Ronnie James Dio is often credited with popularizing it in the 1970s. He said he borrowed it from his Italian grandmother, who used the Malocchio gesture to ward off the evil eye. But when Dio flashed it on stage, fans saw something darker, a sign of defiance, power, and maybe even devil worship. During the 1980s satanic panic, the devil horns became Exhibit A in moral crusades against rock and metal. Parents groups, televangelists, and even politicians claimed it was proof of occult influence in popular music. Bands like Black Sabbath and Slayer leaned into the controversy, while others insisted it was just a bit of stage theatrics. Even today, the horns can cause scandal. In 2017, photos of President Trump's staff member flashing the sign sparked conspiracy theories online. Was it a joke, a rock and roll nod, or something more sinister? Politicians worldwide have faced similar accusations after being photographed mid-gesture. This constant tension between fun, culture, and fear keeps the devil horns disputed. To millions, it's nothing more than the global shorthand for rock on. To others, it's a symbol of rebellion against religion or even a literal sign of Satan. Like so many gestures, the meaning depends less on the hand itself than on who's watching. Shaka sign, hang loose. The shaka is one of the friendliest gestures on earth. Thumb and pinky extended, the middle fingers curled, hand gently waved. In Hawaii, it means hang loose, all good, or simply aloha spirit. Surfers adopted it in the 20th century, spreading it across America as a sunny shorthand for chill vibes. But once the shaka left Hawaii, disputes began. Native Hawaiians see it as a cultural expression tied to island identity. On the mainland, it often gets used casually in marketing campaigns, on Instagram, or by people with no real connection to Hawaiian culture. Critics call this cultural appropriation, stripping the gesture of its deep local roots. The U.S. military has even stumbled into controversy with the shaka. Soldiers stationed in Hawaii sometimes use it in official photos, sparking debate over whether that's respectful or tone-deaf. Meanwhile, politicians have been caught awkwardly flashing it to connect with local voters, with results ranging from endearing to cringeworthy. Then there's the issue of misinterpretation abroad. In some cultures, the thumb-pinky combo resembles rude gestures. Tourists trying to hang loose have unintentionally offended locals in places like Brazil or Turkey. All of this shows how even the friendliest hand sign can become disputed. In Hawaii, the shaka is sacred, a greeting, a farewell, a blessing. On the mainland, it risks being reduced to a meme. And overseas, it can be downright confusing. The shaka proves that context isn't just important, it's everything. The finger gun gesture, pointing the gun. The finger gun gesture is when someone extends the index finger, raises the thumb, and mimics firing a gun by motion or direction. To many people, it's just a playful way to say gotcha or boom. But to others, especially in public or in professional settings, it's loaded with meaning and controversy. A recent high-profile example is NBA star Ja Morant. In April 2025, the league fined him $75,000 for repeatedly using finger gun gestures during games, even after being warned by the NBA that the gesture could be seen in a negative light. School authorities also treat the gesture seriously. In Tennessee, a 10-year-old student who made a finger gun gesture was expelled under a law that mandates a 1-year expulsion for any student who threatens mass violence on school property, even if the threat was not credible. Legally, some jurisdictions consider pointing a gun-like hand gesture to be disorderly conduct when used to intimidate or threaten. For example, a court in Pennsylvania in 2019 ruled that imitating the firing and recoiling of a gun with a hand gesture constituted a crime of disorderly conduct. In sports leagues, finger gun gestures are often penalized as unsportsmanlike conduct. The NBA has issued warnings and technical fouls. In the NFL, league leaders have claimed that finger gun celebrations send the wrong message and have discussed policies to limit or penalize such gestures. The controversy comes down to context. In a friendly setting among friends, it may be shrugged off. In other settings, a school, a game, a televised event, it may be interpreted as violent, threatening, or insensitive. Because of real-world gun violence concerns, many viewers and institutions don't see just a gesture anymore, and now hand gestures are powerful because they're simple. A flick of the wrist, 2 fingers in the air, a clenched fist, and suddenly you've sent a message that can unite, divide, or even end careers. That's why these 7 American hand signs remain so hotly disputed. They carry layers of history, politics, and culture that mean something very different depending on who's watching. So here's the question. Is the meaning of a gesture defined by the person using it or by the people interpreting it? Can a harmless signal ever really be reclaimed once extremists, politicians, or protesters give it a new edge? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading them. And if you want more deep dives into the hidden symbols and stories shaping our world, hit like, subscribe, and share this video. Because sometimes the smallest gesture says the most.